On today's show, singer-songwriter Laura Gagnon and documentary researcher and producer Juan Andres Bello. Join me as we learn more about these hidden gems of London. Welcome to London's Hidden Talent. I'm your host, Jennifer Martino. In London, Ontario, our art and culture scene is thriving thanks to the creative talents of lifelong Londoners and people from around the world who have made this community their home. Together, we will get to know the people who are bringing our stages, galleries, and streets to life. First up, we have singer-songwriter Laura Gagnon. Laura is from a musical family and grew up to be an award-winning pop, R&B, rock artist who has toured Ontario, the United States, and France. Laura won the 4th season of the Tailgate Talent Show and recently appeared as a voiceover actor on a 5-part Christmas series on CKSY Radio. Laura's powerful vocals command attention. I know you will enjoy her original song, Shady Lane Road. Laura, thank you for joining us on London's Hidden Talent. Really happy to have you here. You have such an interesting combination of experiences with different genres of music, and I'm particularly excited to talk about some of your new work, which includes being a voiceover artist on radio. That is so neat. So thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here to talk about all of the things.
So many things.
Yes, too many, I think.
I think if Londoners have seen you perform live, it will not be as a voiceover artist in a Christmas special. It would be through your music. Could you tell us a little bit about the style of music that you typically play around our community?
Sure. So I play as a solo artist, and I do R&B pop music with me as a piano player. And I also have a duo that's just kind of started out about 5 months ago. And that's a lot of cover songs and, again, pop music because it's kind of like what I do. And then I also have an 8-piece band, and the 8-piece band has a horn section in it. I have a couple of backup singers as well, and we've been playing around a lot. We just finished playing Pride, and then we're also filming for our TV series in a couple of weeks at Quiet Earth.
That is a lot happening.
There's a lot more.
And
Keep it short.
And what you're shooting at Quiet Earth Farm is being done in collaboration with Rogers. And so
Yes.
people will be able to catch that episode, and I hope they look out for that. It's a beautiful setting. You have a powerful voice no matter where I've seen you sing, but that barn has a really amazing sound.
It's going to be amazing, and the fact that I get to actually play a grand piano there is going to be a really, really cool experience.
Well, and speaking of the piano, often when we think of singer-songwriters, we imagine a person with a guitar. That's what you most often see.
Yes.
How did you land on the piano as your instrument?
I was born, and then that was just about it. I took to the piano. There was actually a cute little picture of me I found of me when I think it was 5 years old, and I'm standing on this drum stool at I think it's like at a music place, and you see both my hands on this double stacked piano, just standing there with my little pigtails in like a pink little jumpsuit. And I think that's kind of like where it all began. It was like the piano was my first love, my instrument of choice, and that's continued until now.
A lot of people start with the piano when you're studying music, and that's how you learn to read music. And then they move on to other instruments. And there are other things that are lighter to carry around.
Yes, there is. Yes.
You can have a smaller vehicle, for example. But I think it really adds something to live shows to see this sound that we're so used to hearing in music, but we don't get a lot of exposure to anymore in the community. And you mentioned that you play with different combinations of people. Well, in the intro, we talked about how you come from a musical family, and I've seen you play with both of your parents.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to play as a family group?
So when I'm playing with my parents, to me, they're no longer my parents. They're just part of the group. But there is nothing like having family harmonies in a band, as I'm sure every artist performs with their family will say the exact same thing. And there's some sort of like magical thing about it, which really, inspires the audience. The audience is just so in love with seeing that sort of connection between you and your family.
Yeah. Did your parents grow up with musical aspirations, wanting to make a full-time career out of it?
So they did. They actually recorded a whole album called Mr. E. They were nominated for a Juno Award, and then they had a couple of their songs on played across Canada on Hot AC, on high rotation. So they've done some pretty extraordinary things with their music career.
And I wonder if that's part of what I see in you, where you're one of the hardest working professional musicians that I know. And that's not to say that every musician doesn't work hard to improve themselves and to find spaces and time to play, but you are playing all over the place. You are trying different things, and you're willing to try different venues.
Yeah.
And I wonder if growing up in a family that really knew what it was to try to make it as a paid professional in this industry, if you think that's influenced you at all.
So I come from an entrepreneurial family. So I don't know anything else other than working really, really hard to keep the momentum going. No one else is going to keep your momentum going except you. So for me not to work as hard as I do and play as much as I do, I don't really see any other way other than doing it that way. But I love doing it. So I think that's kind of the key, really.
I talked to a singer who has a full-time job supporting seniors in our community, and I asked her how she does it because she's up really late and she goes to work the next morning really early, and she said, I do it because I have to. If I didn't sing, I couldn't be me.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's exactly
like
the same thing.
Saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like it's an extension of myself. It's like an extra arm or something, right?
How did you end up branching out into voiceover work and being in a Christmas special on the radio?
That's a really, really fun story. My friend Robert Bellamy, who's a filmmaker out of Chatham, Kent, he approached me and he asked me, have you ever written a Christmas song before? And I thought, well, I've been meaning to write one. And so he says, okay, well, I want you to write me a Christmas song. Here's kind of what I want it to be about. So it's about Christmas cheer, bringing Christmas cheer back to the community. I thought, okay. So I have it in my studio. So I wrote the song in a couple of hours, sent it back to him. He hadn't even finished the script yet. He was like, oh, geez, that was quick. That was really, really quick. All right. So they ended up writing the script based off of the song that I wrote. And then he asked me if I would like to be a voiceover actor on it as well. And I'm like, of course I am going to just dive into anything that I possibly can, right? Just to expand myself and my experiences. So, and then that's when I became Candy Cane, the elf, on this Christmas series.
So neat. And you have a lot of students. You have a lot of kids that you're teaching to be the next generation of talent in our community.
Yeah.
I imagine that they would have loved hearing you play that part. So if you haven't shared it with them yet, you have to put that on your list of things to do.
So they've heard it. So it aired last Christmas, through Christmas. And so you can actually go up on the CKSY Chatham Kent site and listen to the whole thing.
I've heard a piece of it on the radio, but I'm going to listen to the whole for sure.
Yeah, it was super fun. And the other actors on it are hilarious. They're super, super fun. I learned a lot from them as well.
I did want to ask you about the teaching that you do. There are children in our community who've been working with for years now, including quite small children. And at the Simple Reflections for Artists Fusion Fest that happens every summer, you bring some of your students with you. There's a youth showcase on the Friday night. And I really appreciated seeing how much you support them and how much energy you give them while they're playing.
Yeah.
And you're dancing in the crowd. You're making a big party for them. Their family's there. Everybody who's watching is moved but also really proud of what they're doing. How did you land on teaching music as part of your professional work?
So when I was about 18 years old, my mom teaches piano theory classes. And I was about 18 years old. We used to live in this house where there was the basement and then you had your main floor. And while my mom was teaching, I'm always like upstairs playing and doing my thing. And she had this one student, her name was Brooke, and she always used to stop and listen to me upstairs. And my mom had said to me, "Have you ever thought about teaching music?" And I thought, well, I don't know. I think I'd be pretty good at it. I have all of the certificates to do it and all that, my grade 9 voice and grade 9 piano classical. And so she basically just said, okay, you're teaching. Here's your student. And that's how it all started, me teaching music. And I was really, really, really good at it. And I'm really happy that I kept on with it throughout these, how long, 18 years? It's been a long time since I've been teaching. But I'm really enjoying seeing and hearing the progress of these kids. And I'm really enjoying being a mentor to these kids. And I've now started giving them bigger opportunities because of the age they are and how hard they've worked at their craft. And it is something else. And I am so, so proud of these kids.
Do you ever have families or children come to you and say, I want to sing, I like singing, but I'm not sure I'm good enough? Because I would think that one thing is singing in your house or in your shower or you're in your car, wherever you do it. But to take that step, to put yourself in front of someone like a teacher and say, this is what I've got. What can you do with this? I would imagine that could be intimidating. How do you encourage people who are in that space of just getting started?
So I usually have them come in and choose a song that they know, that they love, and I have them just stand beside me. I sing along with them if they're not comfortable enough to sing by themselves, which is usually every single time, which is totally fine. And then we pretty much have sound like a little karaoke party. So I get to hear them because I have ears like a bat. And they end up becoming really, really comfortable with it. And they end up coming back and we kind of do the same thing again. And then the next time I sort of take myself out of their way and then to grow their confidence. So that's kind of how I like to do it when I'm teaching those kinds of students.
Wow, I think I might even be comfortable in that scenario. that sounds really good, really supportive, low stress. Well, you are a solo artist, you are part of bands, you are a music teacher, you play an elf at Christmas. There's really nothing that you can't do when it comes to music. And you've been such a huge part of the local music scene. You're really supportive of other artists. I'm so happy that you also took the time to come and support this show today and be a part of this project. And if Londoners would like to learn more about you, whether it be as a teacher or to see you play live or just to find out what else you're up to, because I know you're going to be doing a whole bunch more things coming up, how could they find you?
So they can find me online on my website, Laura Gagnon, that's Gagnon, music.com. They can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those main sources. You can type my name right into Google and all these things will just pop up. It's all the same, Laura Gagnon Music.
Thank you for that. And I really would encourage people to look you up, follow you. You're just a bright light in our community.
Thank you.
It's great to know you. So thanks for being here today.
As I walk down Shady Lane Road, rocks and ash in my clothes, and look to the left, a man stares in my face. A look of a question, it sinks into place. He says, where am I going? What am I looking for? Walking down Shady Lane Road.
Next, we have documentary researcher and producer Juan Andres Bello. Juan Andres explores the use of archival materials for storytelling purposes, including photos, footage, and textual records. Over the last 2 decades, his practice has covered a wide range of subjects: architecture, history, cultural heritage, and human rights, both in Latin America and Canada. His portfolio includes independent films and projects commissioned by A&E, the Biography Channel, and HBO Latin America, as well as digital resources and exhibitions for museums and cultural institutions. Juan Andres, thank you for joining us on London's Hidden Talent today. It's really exciting to have a filmmaker that focuses both on local projects, which is really neat. There aren't so many documentaries made about London, but also international projects, especially with the emphasis on Latin America. So thank you for taking the time to come and tell us about that.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm really interested to hear about some of the work that you've done capturing moments of history and culture in Latin America. Just tell us a little bit maybe about the sorts of projects that you've been focusing on over the last, you said, 2 decades?
Yeah, well, a lot of my projects are focused on history and art and architecture. And for many years, I've been producing documentaries on those subjects. So that's been like a very rewarding experience, because I had the opportunity of traveling all across Latin America, working on several subjects, sometimes on my own projects, independent projects, and sometimes projects for other people, like, for example, HBO in Latin America and the Biography Channel. So yeah, it's about finding good stories and translating them into images and creating stories that are appealing to an audience. And that's the work that I do. And I work a lot on archival-based projects. So working with historical footage and historical photographs and textual records and documents of kinds. And it's about, exploring that and the stories that those records have to tell.
You told me about a project that you did locally, which really surprised me, and it was about the Dominion building downtown. How do you land on a topic like a building in downtown London to produce a documentary about?
Yeah, well, when I moved to London, I was just finishing a project on a university campus in Caracas, in Venezuela, in the city where I'm originally from. And that university campus, it was built in the 1950s and is part of the UNESCO World Heritage List. It's a very exceptional example of mid-modern architecture. And then when I moved to London, I was, looking around and let's, try to find like a good subject for a documentary project on architecture. And the Dominion Public Building, that's on the corner of Queens and Richmond. It's an incredible example of Art Deco architecture. It was built in the 1930s, and it's also like a heritage building. It's protected by heritage designation, and it has exceptional value because of the way that it was designed, but also because it was a very hard time for London. It was built during the Depression years, and people were struggling to find jobs, and that was a government program, a federal program. The idea was to construct public works to create job opportunities. So it's a building that has an interesting connection with the city in terms that it was about creating opportunities and so people could have a job for a long period of time. And I think that's quite important. It was important back then, but today it's always like an important issue how to create opportunities for people. So I think that project and that project is available online. The Dominion publicbuilding.ca. That's the website, and it's an opportunity for people to learn a little bit more about the history of the city. But it was not just about London, it was about Canada at that time. Canada in the 1930s, and the London building was part of a series of buildings that were constructed all across Canada, and there is a Dominion Public Building in Halifax and Vancouver and Regina. So London was one of the cities that was selected for the construction of a building that was also about providing services to the community, and it's also like a good, interesting thing to explore.
Part of this show is talking about how people come from all over the world with different perspectives and different talents and make London their home, and what that contributes to our community. And when we talk about a project like the one you're describing, I went to high school downtown. I've been in London my entire life. My family has for generations. I have never given that building a second thought. And there's something so powerful about people going to a place and seeing the imperceivable, seeing the invisible, and really placing a value on that. And I find so often in conversations with people who have come here from other places, they're the ones who end up being the biggest fans of our community because they appreciate things that we don't see, like safety. There's such a difference in security in your everyday. And you've really highlighted some of the really serious issues that people face in other countries. At Museum London, you had a really moving reveal and showing of a film about El Salvador, and that's actually how we became connected. And so I wonder, when you're coming and making a place like London your home, has it helped you maybe integrate into the community by looking at artifacts, or how do you even figure out what you want to look more into, and how do you get access to these things?
Yeah, well, it's always like a difficult task. It's a work in progress. So it's about that, well, you belong to the country or the region where you came from, but you live here in Canada and you become a Canadian, and it's about embracing, this country and this community and being part of that. So it's for example, the work that I produced in El Salvador was about documenting experiences from the Civil War. There was a terrible civil war in El Salvador in the 1980s. So I traveled there many times to work with the survivors of these terrible massacres that took place during the early years of the war, but at the same time, that was also like an opportunity to connect with Salvadorian people here in the city because of the war. Many people moved to Canada and found here like a place to raise their families, and it's about exploring those connections. So, for example, I've been working in the last couple of years with members of the Colombian community, which is the largest Spanish-speaking community here in the city, documenting their experiences as immigrants and as citizens, and I think it's about that. So it's about that reflecting on what London has to offer, and it's a great place again to raise a family, and it's also a community that is changing a lot. I've been here for 15 years, and you can see that the city is growing, and the demographic profile of the city is also changing, and that's very exciting, I believe. And one thing that I've been, in all this, work as a documentary producer or working on historical subjects, some people are not aware of, how many immigrant communities have been in London for decades, even since London was established as a city, and those are stories that are probably still waiting to be told. For example, the Polish community, the Italian community, the Portuguese community, they have been here for decades, and probably not many people are aware of their contributions. And now we have people who are just arriving, and I think that's what makes London a great place to live. I think it's, all what we love of Canada, as a multicultural country, as a welcoming country. I think London is like a good example of that. Of course, nothing is perfect. There are always challenges, but yeah, there are, too many subjects that I would like to explore as a filmmaker, as a documentary producer. I'm always involved in curatorial projects, and now working with Simple Reflections, and working together in some new projects. So yeah, it's about connecting with people, with other artists, and working together to tell stories that are relevant to the London community, and that could make us like an even better place to live.
We are so fortunate that you landed in London, that your family landed in London, and that you're here to tell the stories, but also to identify them. And I think you're absolutely right. Our community, has changed so much since my grandma was a little 2-year-old walking down Richmond and Dundas. It was, a very different kind of Richmond Row at that time. And to what it is today, we really need diverse perspectives to help us see that, and also to appreciate a lot of the beauty of our local culture and our local community. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing to move that forward. If people would like to follow your project, see what you've done, but also what you have coming up, where could they find you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's trianamedia.ca. Well, we can add, I guess, after, like an insert with the name of the website is Tia. Well, I'm not going to spell it because, time is kind of precious in television, but it's I'm also on Instagram, and I'm probably not sharing that that as frequently as I should, but probably when this goes on air, I will share more content on social media.
I really encourage Londoners to check out what you've been doing, to watch your entire Dominion video, because that is available online. As you said, we're going to be sharing where people can find that. And we also have a clip from it so that they can get a sense of what that project is all about. Thank you again for joining me today.
You're very welcome.
And I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you very much.
The Dominion building would have been almost breathless in its height. This would have towered as many public buildings did, just to create their presence. The maple leaf at the top and the flagpole and the flag must have just been overwhelming in its day.